All right, thank you for inviting me again. While preparing for the talk and listening to the previous talk, we heard I got through a whole set of mixed emotions, basically. At the beginning, I felt insecure, like highly skilled people like you. Maybe you don't like my hands-on approach. I'm actually running a company with a different style of doing it. And while listening to the previous talk, I got increasingly angry. Maybe it's a very red room here, I don't know, but I felt that we kind of have to act, basically. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm kind of, in my ideas, looking at a system which I actually don't like. Capitalism is very unfair in distributing power and very unfair in distributing resources. And that's what we need to fix. It's not going to fix itself. So I'm trying to address this system like a hacker-style mentality. Like I could easily demonstrate against it. I could throw rocks at a bank or something. I won't be changing anything, but I can also infiltrate the system and try to change it from within. And that's actually what I'm trying to do. And while I'm getting more and more angry right now, I'm not going to stick to the presentation, but I'm going to be skipping some slides to transfer the main idea. We need to act, basically. And one way of acting, one method, is actually to empower the people we actually work with, which can be done with certain forms of democracy and can be done with a lot of different aspects as well. So the company I'm running is producing the Capitalism Drink #1. It's a cola. And most of the work being done for it is being done in Germany. So hopefully the fraction of forced labor is very small. But for example, there's also a cola nut involved, which is a fraction of a fraction, but still it's in there. So I'm taking home that we have to follow this further than we did before. There are several collection sites on the globe where the cola nut farmers bring their nuts, and you can only extract the nuts back to there, but not further. And maybe we would have to set up an own production. That's what I'm taking home right now. The product itself is pretty minimalistic in design, but also in the ecological footprint. We have optimized lots of aspects which you actually can't see because we optimized them away. For example, the labels, the color, the plastic, and so on. So it's glass returnable bottles only. And we have also limited the distribution area to German-speaking countries, because we have had 3 life cycle assessments for the ecological footprint and found out that we shouldn't be delivering further than 600 kilometers around the bottling plant, which is roughly here. So we get inquiries from all over Europe and also from all over the world. People want to buy this cola, and we politely decline due to the ecological limitations of our planet. We cannot deliver. It's just too far, too big of a footprint. You should be producing your own and buy your local cola. And we get funny responses sometimes from an Indian guy, for example. He was asking, what if I pick it up? Well, it's the same distance, right? So all right. So we sell 1.6 million bottles per year. So it's a smaller company, not a big one, but still it's big enough to sustain itself. And when I'm talking about we as a company, maybe this is the first major tweak or hack I'm trying to establish. In my opinion, the company does not consist of the employees only, which we don't have, I'm going to explain, but the company actually consists of a network of all kinds of suppliers and partners and cafe and bar and club owners and logistics companies, and of course suppliers of the ingredients. So formally speaking, the company is here, but I feel that the company consists of the whole network of interdependent actors, like the suppliers for the ingredients, like the bottling plant, a customs agency, trucking companies, wholesalers, dealers, club and bar owners, people who program stuff, other vendors, and so on. So in an interconnected business world, I think it doesn't make sense to think in terms of internal and external. But we feel that any time we have a connection to somebody, then this person or entity should be considered an internal one, which means that they should have access to the same information we have and to the same power we have when we take decisions, and also to the same resources we can distribute. So in my opinion, these 1,700 commercial partners are internal partners, so to speak. And with all these, we were thinking about power relations, and a good method to exercise power over somebody actually is a contract. So if we agree on a price maybe or on a delivery condition and then write this down and sign it for the course of a year maybe, then something might change over this course of the year. So one side of the deal might get unhappy, but with the contract I can easily force them to stick to the negotiation we had like half a year ago and misuse power. So in my opinion, a contract is a good method to misuse power. So we try to and stick to not to have any. So there's not a single written contract with every 1,700 commercial partners shown here. And this changes the power relation. So I have to treat them so well that they actually stay with us and work with us. And they have to treat us in a way that we will stay because we need each other. So there's a great freedom of leaving, basically. Anybody who gets unhappy could leave at any given time. And this is the key, I think, to actually putting the power relation on a more even level. And also we act very carefully not to be too big of a customer to certain partners. So for a bottling plant, for example, we have 10% of their revenue is going through us. So if we left, it would be, well, pretty bad for them, but they would survive it. So we have a power relationship also by the size of relations, because we feel that if one partner in a game is too big in relation to the other, then it's also a method of power or chance of misusing power. And also we politely decline too big customers. For example, we had a customer once with 112 additional shops, which would have meant 50% of our revenue on top, which sounds great, but if this customer then starts to use this power against us, we are kind of in a forced situation. So we politely decline too big customers. So it's about a kind of removing potential power misuses by declining too big customers, not becoming a too big customer ourselves, and also avoiding contracts. Now you might imagine that in the business world there's contracts provide a level of safety. So if you have contracts, then everybody knows what's the game and you can easily avoid problems and fights and lawsuits. And if you don't have contracts, there are many lawsuits maybe. But we have made it 16.5 years right now with 1,700 commercial partners without a single lawsuit we had to fight. So I'm giving the thesis that if you treat people in a reasonable fashion and avoid power misuse potentials, then you get more happy people and have a more efficient company which you can run. So that's what I'm trying to do. And the idea behind all this, I think it's a pretty basic one. So I think that we should treat humans as basically humans. So no matter where they come from, which gender they have, color of skin, and so on. There's always the basic human equal dignity we should follow. And this is a concept which is pretty uncommon in business, right? If you own something, then you can use your power over your employees. If you are a big customer, you can force the smaller supplier. So there's an unequal distribution of power and also of equal dignity. And this is something I think is very important to give as a clear orientation for our company. This is the only thing I'm not going to discuss, because there is no human being which has only a fraction of less equal dignity, right? These are humans, so we should treat them as humans and share the power and share the resources as good as we can. And everything else can be negotiated, but this, I think, should not be negotiable. All right, and with this in mind, when I founded the company, I opened it up from the very beginning and invited all suppliers, all customers, and also the consumers who just drink the bottles to come to the table and bring their ideas, thoughts, needs, and wishes in order to collect them in the first place, and then be able to discuss and align them in a way that we have a basically group of happy suppliers and happy customers. So the company is pretty much open from day one, and I'm not using my formal power I might have to give decisions, but instead I'm giving away the decision-making power to everybody involved, no matter where they are located, formally speaking, internal or external. And we found out that it's pretty much easier than I thought, because we are dealing in a field between great autonomy of the singular person and also a democracy where we take decisions which then have effect on everybody else. And the decisions vary. So we have decisions which we want to take on a personal level, like where I want, how much work, where I work, how much I work, with which tools I work, and so on, which typically companies try to decide for the employees, but we feel this is your personal freedom to decide. and also the location, of course. And then there are topics which we want to decide as a group, namely as a group of the affected persons by the decision. So right now, I'm going to explain this later. I'm organizing logistics for a big German festival. 80,000 people go there to celebrate and to drink, of course. So there's 58 trucks of drinks involved. One of them is from us, and the others are affecting the truck drivers, the forklift drivers at the festival, the accounting, the other drinks producers, and so on. So I need to ask for them and for their needs and wishes and align all these to a group decision in consensus. And that's basically when somebody else is affected. And when the whole company is affected, like for questions of strategy, costing structure, new products, and so on, I have to invite everybody which is actually affected by the company. So if we want to have a new product, I need to invite the consumers as well, the suppliers, the customers. Everybody should be involved in the whole company's decisions. And this is much more easy. It's easier than it sounds, because the number of decisions is reduced. So there are very many personal decisions. There are fewer group decisions, and there are only a few companies' decisions which we have to take as a whole. And when we decide, we want to have the maximum power handed over to the single individual to prevent him or her being treated in a bad fashion. So we thought we need consensus with our decisions. So we put up a method which is also pretty easy to run, much more complicated, and it's not as complicated as it sounds. We agree on a common goal, the equal dignity of people. Then it's pretty much open to anybody from the suppliers or from the consumers to give any topic. We discuss, typically like 2 or 3 weeks. Then somebody gives a suggestion. And everybody in that group, where everybody can join as well, is able to give a veto. So we need to collect the ideas and wishes of the suppliers and the people before and merge them in a suggestion which actually can pass through without a veto. And this is, I think, where the actual magic happens. So it's not about negotiation and using power, but it's about collecting and integrating the thoughts and ideas. And we have, at the moment, we have 240 people using the chance to take part in decision making. Half of them are consumers, half of them are suppliers and customers. And we have vetoes like once or twice a year. So this is a working decision making model, even with 1,700 commercial companies. And we found out that this model has its limits, as every model has. We had 3 situations where we needed to act quickly, and we couldn't discuss any solution to consensus. And the first 2 incidents were simple questions like an art picture on the back side of the labels. The second one was about a line of text on the front side of the labels. So I was allowed to give a decision then, so we could move forward as a company. And the third incident was a misproduction. The double amount of caffeine was in the bottles. Pretty cool, but it's illegal. You have to retract these bottles immediately. So we had 3 incidents in 16.5 years where we needed a management decision. So once in 5 years, which I think is pretty great. And I actually do think that leadership is being done properly when it almost never has to give any order. Because if you have to give an order, if you have to force something, then I think something went wrong before. So I'm pretty proud of this, actually, that we only need me giving an order once in 5 years. So I think that's been a good working model. And also what we do need is a model to fire somebody. I think basically humans are good, so if you treat them with respect and invite them to decision making and share of resources, then you will get positive answers most of the time, but there is the occasional idiot you need to get rid of. And this firing process needs to be very hard, so everybody knows it's very hard to get fired from this, but also it needs to be possible if you have to fire somebody. And we figured that the best way for us is to have a firing with a consensus minus the person which is actually it's about. So if I wanted to have you fired from the room, I would have to explain, and your veto wouldn't count, but you would be able to discuss as well. And then we would have to ask the whole room, and if nobody else gives a veto, then you would be fired from that room. And I think that's very vital for the whole network to actually know that it's there's the clear orientation what the company is actually doing, the equality of people, basically. And there's this big room where you can work slowly, make mistakes, be of a different opinion, get on our nerves, and so on, but you won't be fired for this. Unless you cross the red line and try to do damage to the company deliberately, then you can be fired. So I think that's very vital. Have a clear orientation and have a wide space virtually where you know you can just do your job, and maybe you are sick or have a different opinion or make mistakes, there's no problem, unless you do damage to the company, then you can be fired. All right, then we had to come up with an online solution, because first year we were discussing in Hamburg, where I live, and then we were more people from more cities, 200 cities. So we put up an emailing list the next 12 years. It was great chaos. And then we put up an online forum, which is pretty much open until today to any supplier and to any consumer. This is the information area, so you can inform yourself what the company is doing. And there's only one hidden folder there, which is about personal problems of the people who work for the project. For example, we have one guy who has a drug problem. We are discussing in a smaller group what we should do about it, and we are not telling anybody in this network that Bernd, just to give a name, has a drug problem. So this is it, and we have a information area, discussion area here you can join, and you can give any topic there. And also this, I think, forum shows the limitations of our approach. You have to have an online access to take part in decision making. You have to be able to read and understand and write German. And you have to be, you have to actually know that there is this platform. So if you are working as a cola nut farmer somewhere in Brazil, then you maybe don't even know that the platform even exists. So that's something we should improve. And we discuss here everything we have to decide. Of course, also the costing structure. This has been made transparent, of course, I think, because if you buy a product, you should be able to take an informed decision about it. So where's your money actually going? Who's getting which share? And you should be able to have a say where your money is actually going. So that's what we do. We make this open to any customer and to anybody from the supply chain. And we decide in consensus which money is going to whom. And this is also much easier than I would have expected, because we very rarely have fights about money. And we pick up the costing structure like once a year, like any other company, have a budget talk once a year. It's pretty common. And we can reach consensus until now, who's going to get which share. So I think this is pretty great. And I think this also is working because we have the idea that not a single person should be able to collect profits from this. For example, me as the owner, I could easily collect the profits from this, but this would give me an unequal position in the game, right? So we decided we don't want to have profits. And by doing so, we are hopefully eliminating a major cause of bigger problems elsewhere, because if it's just about profits, then I could easily earn more for myself while pressing on the suppliers and forcing them to produce cheaper, or maybe hide this from the consumers and take more money from you than actually needed. So we felt that we should have no profits at all, but instead we should have the same salary for everybody, which is per hour basically. So it's right now it's 18 euros per hour for anybody who works for us. And we have 3 possible rises for people with kids, for people with handicaps, and if you need a desk somewhere, you can get paid for that actual desk, so the room and the heating and so on. And by doing so, I think we were kind of consequent in sharing the decision-making power and also the resources, so there's nobody getting profits from this. And by doing so, I think we have set the foundation for very few talks, quarrels, fights, problems. So just sharing, I think we share so we have more, basically. And concerning the working conditions, this is from a collective member, Elena. She compared this standard working relations, which is mostly decided upon by somebody else, so by the boss of another company. He will decide where she works, what she works, how much she works, and so on. And we felt that we could easily let go. So she's deciding where, when, how much, and what she's actually working. So this is a kind of very trust-based approach on the one hand, but also it's a kind of a freedom approach. So if she doesn't like a job I ask her to do, then she just can't say no to it. And I think this is the way it actually should be. So this is a great level of freedom. And also when we have people who run into problems, then we have been paying for one person for the course of 10 months, although she couldn't work during the time, because I want everybody to know that if you have personal problems, then you still need money, so we're still going to pay. So, right, I'm skipping some slides and coming back to here, because I feel that the bottle is just a tangible product of our company, but the actual product is intangible. It's about caring for everybody involved here. So it's about caring for the stakeholders, caring for the suppliers, caring for the consumers. And this is a static image right now, but in reality, this is always some change going on. So somebody is having personal problems, somebody has experienced a machine breakdown, someone has a shortage of money, somebody has all kinds of problems going on there. So it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to have fixed contracts with fixed jobs and tasks, because things change, basically. So we need to adapt the whole structure and also adapt us to the persons involved there. Who of you does know somebody or is a person who had never had a personal crisis? Right? We are humans, we have crises, so we need to adapt to the humans, basically, and that's our product. And if we do this well, then we have bottles to sell at the end. And by 2008, I put up the whole concept in an open source fashion, because I think that's how science works. You just build up your knowledge on the knowledge of others. So we put this concept online. It's for free. You can just use it and rewrite it for your personal purposes. So that's something where I feel I can actually contribute to the change I need to see. So we run the company in this particular fashion by ourselves. We, of course, have effects on these 1,700 commercial partners. So most of them at some given point in time try to change their company as well. Then we distribute the ideas while giving it in talks or on the website. And also I've been advising other companies. So there's a whole level of change hopefully being pushed with us and through us. And I'm skipping some slides now, just to come to this particular problem. Imagine the German tax authorities checking on such a project and calling, like, we want to check the past 3 years. Where do we do it? Where's your office? Well, I don't have an office to begin with. Where's the profits? Well, we don't have any. Where's the advertising budget? We don't have any. So this was quite a problematic experience. But also, as we are a small company, I try to stick to the rules. Big companies don't have to, but we have to as a small company. So we went from this check with no complaints at all, even by German tax authorities. And this is, I think, one aspect of proof of concept, basically, that we run this company for 16.5 years, and our approach hasn't been written down before. It's considered to be pretty straightforward, and we have been able to avoid any legal problems, no lawsuits, so we were sticking to the rules. We are still in the capitalistic framework, which I couldn't change yet, but we are still there. And we also have the tax regulations, which we also met. So there's the current common saying that you are in the system of capitalism. You have to have growth, you have to have profits, you have to have management, you have to have this and this and this. But I think this is proof that you actually, maybe you don't. So it's possible to run a company in a totally different fashion. And we proved this and still prove this, which is great fun also. So you could easily state now, I'm skipping some slides, that this company is existing because it's about me. I founded it and I put it on track on this particular fashion, which is right. But also the company does exist because everybody else contributes and meets this approach with their thoughts and ideas and their work putting in and so on. So this is just, I think I was just the spark founding it. And then everybody else contributed and worked with us for longer times. So one person can be enough to spark this. I'm just one person, right? So you can also spark your impossible project, or maybe your company found it. And you can also hack the system, and that's what I'm inviting you to do. Thank you for listening.